So, for a lot of people, reading the Táin or the Táin Bó Cúailnge, the trickiest part about it can be pronouncing the words. Because Irish words are notoriously difficult to pronounce, especially if you've never been exposed to the Irish language. But if you're reading the Thomas Kinsella translation, which I recommend, there is conveniently a pronunciation guide at the start. It's after the introduction and after the maps, Roman numerals page 26 and page 27. It's just 2 pages. So the page on the left is going to be people's names and the page on the right is going to be some of the more prominent place names. There's a lot more place names in the book than there are on this page, but these are the most prominent ones. I'm just going to read through these lists to give you some idea of how you should pronounce these words. And hopefully it'll be helpful for you. Because you don't want to struggle with the language in this book. You want to be able to get over the language and get to the story and the symbolism as quickly and conveniently as possible. Don't take this as the gospel truth, by the way, because like any language, Irish has many different accents. There's different ways to pronounce things depending on what period of history it is and what place the person is coming from. But as near as I can tell, the way I pronounce these things are fairly historically accurate. So, we'll start with the page on the left, Roman numeral page 26, people's names. First, Aife. It's Aife. Aife, still a common name in Ireland today. Next, Ailill. Ailill is the king of Connacht. He marries into his kingship when he marries Queen Badb, so he's one of the main characters, Ailill. Next, Amargin. Now, it's spelled Amargin with an M, but an M in the middle of a word is pronounced like a V, and sometimes it's actually silent. So it's Amargin, not Amargin. The same rule applies to B's. B's in the middle of the word are pronounced like V's, or they can be silent as well. Next, badhv. Badhv or bive. That D can be silent because it's in the middle of a word. That's a feature of the Irish language called lenition. Lenition is where consonant sounds are softened. And unfortunately, you just need to know when to soften them and when not to soften them. But don't worry about it too much. Next, Bricriu. Bricriu's full name is Bricriu Nyautanga, which means Bricriu poison tongue, or Bricriu bitter tongue. Because Bricriu is always stirring up strife between people, starting arguments, spreading gossip. So that's Bricriu. Next is a druid, Cathbad. It could be Cathbad or kaffad. The B is pronounced like a V because it's in the middle of a word, and that TH sound can be silent and just pronounced like a H. So you could say Cathbad or kaffad. Next, the king himself, Conchobor. It's either Conchobor or Conchobor. That CH there in the middle can be silent. The B is a V, so it's Conchobor or Conchor. And his full name is Conchobor mac Nessa, which means Conchobor, the son of Nessa. Nessa is his mother. And he's king of Ulster, the Ullid. Next, the hero of the story, Cúchulainn. It's his nickname, it's not his real name, but it's the nickname he's given and it sticks. It means the hound of Chúll. Chúll is a blacksmith. Some manuscripts will call him Conchobor because Cú and Con are the same word. It means hound or dog. So Conchobor mac Nessa, actually his name means dog lover, because Con and Cú are dogs. Cúchulainn is Cullen's hound. Next is Cúchulainn's mother, Deichtine. Deichtine is actually the sister of King Conchobor mac Nessa. And she's Cúchulainn's mother, Deichtine. Next, Deirdre or Dedra. Still a common name in Ireland today. Next, Duach or Dúthach. The B is silent. It can be pronounced as a V, so you could say Duvach or Duvthach, but I would just say Dúthach or Duach. Next, still a common name in Ireland today, Evir or Aver. We pronounce it today, Emer, but the M is pronounced like a V in the middle of a word, so it's Evir or Aver. Next, Etrachol or Etrachovel. Next, Yochi, which is a great name. It means horseman. And if you imagine if your toddler or your child eats something disgusting, they might say Yocky. That's Yocky Daddy. Well, that's his name. His name is Yocky. Yocky means horseman. You could say Yochid and pronounce the D, but Yocky is more fun. Next, Fedelm. The M at the end of her name is pronounced like an M. Fedelm is a prophetess. Next, Fedlavid. D's in the middle of words are generally pronounced kind of soft, like a DH, but at the end of a word, it's kind of pronounced hard. So it's Fedlavid. Fedlavid. Or you can make it a silent D at the end and say Fedlami. Fedlami. Next, Fardia. Fardia is important because he is next to Cúchulainn, the greatest warrior in Ireland. He's Cúchulainn's best friend, and he's equal to Cúchulainn in all respects except for the use of one weapon. Fardia is important. Next, Finavir. Finavir is a woman's name. It means something like fair shoulders or fair cheeks, fair face. It basically means beautiful. And Finavir is the daughter of Ailill and Badb, I think. Next, Galleon. Galleon. If you look at the word, there's a dash over the O there. That dash is called a fada. Fada means long in Irish. So if you see a dash over a vowel sound, you pronounce that vowel longer than any of the other vowels. So it's Galleon, emphasis on the O. Next, Laig. Laig is Cúchulainn's chariot driver. So he goes basically everywhere with Cúchulainn, because Cúchulainn basically goes everywhere in a chariot. Laig is important because Laig and Cúchulainn basically single-handedly defend Ulster against the Táin, the invasion from Connacht. I think his full name is Laig mac Rian Gavra, so Rian Gavra would be his father. Next, Lavorcum or Lavorcum. The B is pronounced like a V, and the E is pronounced like an A, basically. Next, Leira or Leigara. The G can be pronounced either silent or like a soft G, so Leira. Next is Louis or Lugi or Lugad. The G can be silent or it can be a soft G, so I would just say Louis or Lugad. Next, Macroth. Macroth means the son of the wheel. Next, Mana. There's a whole family of brothers called Mana, and they all have different epithets. So the next one is actually one of those brothers, Mana Athravel, which means Mana the father-like. There's also Mana Wathravel, which means Mana the mother-like. So that's Mana. Next, Badb, the main villain in the story, really. She's Queen of Connacht, and she's a proud woman, and she sort of forces everybody to partake in the raid, the Táin into Ulster, because of pride. So it's Badb. Her name is later softened to Maeve, which is still an Irish name today. But at this point in time, people would say Badb. Next, Morrigan or Morian. Americans generally will say Morrigan, which is, acceptable, but it's not the right pronunciation. So the way you would pronounce it properly is Morrigan or Morian, which means phantom queen. She's basically a goddess, and she's not one you would want to run into. Next, Nevin. Next, Nisha. Nisha doesn't appear in the Táin itself. He appears in one of the Ravscéla, the prequel stories to the Táin. But he's important because basically he dies, and everybody's upset about it because everybody loves Nisha and his brothers. Next, Scáthach. Scáthach's a woman. She's a female warrior who trains people to fight on the Isle of Skye. Cúchulainn goes to her to train, so does Fardia, and he learns all his skills there, and his inherent supernatural abilities sort of come to the fore when he trains with Scáthach. Next is Cúchulainn's real name, which is Setanta or Shithanta. You can pronounce S's at the start of a word with an SH in Irish. People today, sometimes even me, I'll say things like stop or story. So you can either say Setanta or Shithanta. And after that is his father, his human father, because he has two fathers. One of them is a god. Sualdam. You can say Sualdam or Sualdav. So that M at the end can be an M or a V. And then last is Ishla. Ishla is the father of Nisha. It's also the name of a hill in the middle of Ireland. And we're not certain if Ishla is actually a person's name or if it's just the name of the area where Nisha is supposed to come from. But his name is Ishla, not Ushliu, like some people will say. I'd add one more to that list. It's not on the list, but he deserves to be there. And that's a man called Fergus MacRoic. Now, Fergus was king of Ulster until Conchobor mac Nessa usurped the throne. But Fergus was actually all right with that arrangement, and he continued to serve Conchobor loyally for a few years until Conchobor used him as a sort of a deception and betrayed Fergus's honour. So Fergus didn't like that, and he defected to Connacht, and that's why he acts as a guide for the forces of the Táin back into Ulster on the Táin. And Fergus MacRoig is the best name in the book, if you ask me, because what his name means is man strength, son of super horse. So Fergus, far is a man, Gus is strength or virility, Mock is son, and Roic basically means something like very horse or an exceptionally horsey horse. So Fergus's name means man strength, son of super horse, and you don't get a better name than that, if you ask me.